नहीं आज hello Synergy. This is our first session for 2025, and like you can see, I've already unlearned my habit of not waking up early, and I'm ready to relearn waking up early. So Anurag, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you everyone who has joined us to understand what at our stage of life what we have to do to unlearn some of our maybe old habits or old belief system or whatever we can say, and and then relearn some of the things that will make our life smoother or easier, hopefully. Let's see. Anurag, I'm going to give it right over to you, so I'm not giving my advice. Over to you. Thank you, Anurag.
Thank you, madam, so much as always, uh,
And Anurag, I'm
giving me
sorry.
so
I
many.
always take it as granted, but I have to introduce Dr. Anurag Srivastava is our junior but very beloved psychiatrist, only psychiatrist I know from MGM. He's from Hyderabad, and you will be delighted to hear his presentation. He keeps it very nice, simple, and sweet, but very powerful. So, welcome, Anurag.
थैंक यू मैडम। आई मुझे लगता है कि nobody can get over the trauma of having known me in MGM in 87। और जब हम लोग शुरुआत में जब पहले आए थे तो अंजीव सर दिख रहे हैं मुझे। उन लोगों के रूम को हम लोग ने इन्वेट किया था और हम हम वहीं पे उनके रूम में सामने 3 महीने में और संगीत, हरीश तिवारी सर, अंजीव चौरसिया सर थे। उनके रूम में हमें हमारे क्योंकि वहाँ रूम ही नहीं थे, हॉस्टल में रूम ही नहीं थे, तो हम लोग वहीं पे उनके पास
Yes.
ही रहे थे। जब तक हमें एलबी ब्लॉक में 31 उनके बाजू, जस्ट नेक्स्ट टू देम, वी गॉट अनदर रूम। और इतने सारे यहाँ पे, ऑफ कोर्स दिस इज माय फेवरेट सीनियर बैच, मैं कई बार बोलता हूँ। और एक बार मैं शायद ये कहानी बता भी चुका हूँ कि एक बार बड़ी भयानक हमारी रैगिंग वैगिंग हो गई थी। तो काफी पिटाई विटाई हो गई थी। तो मुकुल श्रीवास्तव, हमारे बैच का मुकुल श्रीवास्तव, उसको बहुत ज्यादा मार पड़ गई थी, चेहरा वेरा सूज गया था उसका। तो वो गुस्से में आ गया और बोला कि यार मैं तो हॉस्टल हॉस्टल छोड़ के जा रहा हूँ, अब मैं नहीं रहूंगा यहाँ पे। और फिर मैं और संगीत भी, हम भी कि हाँ भाई हम भी मतलब कमरेडरी में हम भी छोड़ देंगे। वो हुआ था। वेणुगोपाल था हमारे क्लास में, उसने बोला यार मैं तो नहीं जाऊंगा छोड़ के, मुझे तो बहुत मजा आ रहा है यहाँ। तो हम लोग ने बोला यार अभी कल ही पिटा है, तू बोल रहा है तो हमको, मेरे को बहुत मजा आ रहा है। बोले हाँ मैं नहीं छोड़ूंगा, मैं तो रहूंगा। तो हम लोग छोड़ने वाले थे। तो उस दिन शाम को अनुराग जैन सर आए हमारे रूम पे। तो उन्होंने कि क्या बात है, हमने बताया कि सर ऐसा हुआ है। और मुकुल ने बोला सर हम इतने दिन से हैं यहाँ पे, फिर भी हमारी इतनी पिटाई हो रही है। तो बोले हम छोड़ के जा रहे हैं। तो सर ने बोला अच्छा ठीक है छोड़ देना। फिर बोले कि वो अच्छा तुम्हारे वो पेरिटोनियम पढ़ा दिया तुमको। तो हमने बोला कि हाँ पता नहीं सर पढ़ाया कि नहीं, किसी को समझ में तो आया नहीं। तो बोले अच्छा चद्दर है तुम्हारे पास चद्दर? तो चद्दर, 2-3 चद्दर दिखाए। तो सर बोले कोई साफ चद्दर है कि? बोले नहीं सर यही है। तो बोले अच्छा ठीक है। तो फिर उन्होंने वो चद्दर से हमें पेरिटोनियम कैसा ड्रेप होता है वो सिखाया।
क्या बात है।
और मैं बताऊं मैडम कि लगभग 40 साल होने को आ रहे हैं उस बात को। लेकिन अगर मुझे एनाटॉमी में एक चीज मान याद है तो वो है कि वो पेरिटोनियम कैसे ड्रेप होता है।
क्या बात है, ईएनटी सर्जन ने पेरिटोनियम दिखाया, सोचो। और
पेरिटोनियम
अभी
से।
अर्चना आई थी, अभी अर्चना और निखिल यदि सुनेंगे तो बोलेंगे कि हम कहाँ थे। क्या बात है। थैंक यू अनुराग
और
सर।
मतलब ही डिमॉन्स्ट्रेटेड द एडवांटेजेस कि भाई
हम्म।
यहाँ उन्होंने बोला नहीं एडवांटेजेस क्या है, लेकिन उन्होंने ये दिखाया कि यहाँ डिसएडवांटेजेस कुछ है तो एडवांटेजेस भी हैं। और
हम्म।
मेरे ख्याल से हर एवरी सीनियर, नीता मैडम है, नीता दत्तवानी मैडम, वो उनसे तो ऑस्कल्टेशन हमने, परकशन ऑस्कल्टेशन सब उन्हीं से सीखा हमने। इवनिंग में उनको बहुत हम लोग ने हैरान किया है। वैसे आई डाउट यहाँ पे कोई भी लोग होंगे जिन्होंने किसी न किसी तरह से, दे हैव नॉट टच्ड अवर लाइव्स। सो इट्स एन ऑनर एंड प्रिविलेज to be part of this group always, and I'm very grateful to Chaya madam for always inviting me.
Chalo, we are all
So
in it
today,
together. Synergy it is. Chalo, presentation शुरू करें. I'm looking forward to it.
please, madam. So आप slide डालेंगे, madam.
Sure.
Yeah. So today, Chaya madam told me कि let us do something. She gave me a few topics from this, and in fact, the first topic which she suggested, which she said this is her idea, and she said कि will you be able to talk on learn and relearn? So I thought that I will do that, and I will share some of my what I have learned in these almost 30 years of psychotherapy practice. I have learned a lot from people I have worked with.
I have to just give
So,
a little kind gratitude to Amba madam. Amba madam ने इस topic suggest किया था, and
all right,
since
okay,
she's also quite busy with weddings and everything, we thought who is the best person to introduce. So you were picked this topic
very well,
for
very well.
synergy.
So it's an honor to do that. So, madam, can we go to the next one, please? So
Sure.
today I thought that I will start off with something which a lot of us will feel कि I don't have this. Some of them may say कि हाँ एक दो चीजें हैं मेरे पास, but it is benign or it doesn't interfere with my life. And I'm sure the vast majority of us do not have obsessive compulsive disorder OCD. मेरे स्टूडेंट्स जो हैं वो डिसएग्री करते हैं, और द नेक्स्ट जो स्लाइड आएगी उसमें तो दे विल बी इवन मोर. So now, this is the DSM, Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, classification of obsessions and compulsions. So obsessions are recurrent and persistent thoughts or urges or ideas or images that a person feels, at least at some point in the disorder, feels them to be intrusive. They are not wanted, and the person does not is not able to control them, but they cause them a lot of anxiety and distress. And the person tries to stop them, prevent them from coming, or tries to counter them, but is unable to do so. And these thoughts are not merely day to day worries that your child has not come back till 9 o'clock. She said that should be back at 6, and you're worried about that. Those situations are not counted among the obsessive thoughts. So obsessive thoughts are anxiety provoking thoughts, they are unwanted thoughts, they are intrusive, and they cannot be stopped by the person even though they try to do it. Now, more interesting is the second component. So, most of us will have a few obsessive thoughts. I will show you that all of us have some obsessive thoughts. We don't count them as obsessive because they don't interfere with our lives too much. But I want to draw your attention to the compulsions, which is more important. Now, compulsions are repetitive behaviors or mental acts. They can be behavior, that is motor acts, or they can be mental acts that the individual feels driven to perform in response to an obsession or according to rules that must be applied rigidly. Now, this part, a lot of us will either identify that, yeah, I have some of this, or some of us who may not realize this, if you think about it, you'll say that, yeah, there are certain things that we do which are in response to an obsession or according to the rules which must be applied rigidly. And these behaviors or mental acts are aimed at preventing or reducing the anxiety or distress which was caused by the obsessive thoughts, or preventing some dreaded event or situation. However, these behaviors or mental acts are either not connected in a realistic way to what they are designed to prevent, or even if they are connected, they are clearly excessive. Now, this part of it, that we have some behaviors and mental acts In fact, they become part of our personality. This is something which we should all think about and recognize. Now, these are the criteria for OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. Now, there is something which is called OCPD, obsessive compulsive personality disorder. It's previously called ananchastic personality disorder. Can we have the next one, madam, please? Now, here, people with OCPD don't have obsessions. They have some components of compulsions, but the difference between OCPD and OCD is that OCPD is a personality. It's within, it's ingrained in us. OCD, the obsessive thoughts are seen as foreign, they're seen as intrusive, they're seen as unwanted. But in OCPD, we don't have these things. Now, if you look at this, I have made it, I have made a summary of this sort of to help us understand this. So this is a persistent pattern of preoccupation with order, perfectionism, control of self, others, and situations. Preoccupation with order, perfectionism, and control of self, others, and situations. Now, I feel that if we don't have any of these qualities, then probably we'll not be here. Like these numbers are horrible. In our time, I think that there were 800 seats in MP, if I remember, in during our PMT, or 40-45,000 लोग 45,000 people are fighting for it. So unless you have got some perfectionism and control of yourself, you're unlikely to be here. Situation is not so much different nowadays also.
Sorry about that.
Situation
Let
is
me mute. Okay.
yeah. Okay. So inadvertently. So the situation is the same now. There are roughly 1 lakh medical MBBS seats in the country, and 35-40 lakh people write the NEET exam. So unless you have some degree of perfectionism and control over yourself, you're not going to make it. Now the thing is that those are the beneficial parts of it, of perfectionism. There are benefits to this. You achieve a lot more. But this goes along with certain other things which come up, and they affect every aspect of our life. So there's a preoccupation with details, rules, schedules, organizations, and lists. There's a striving to do something perfectly. Now the thing is that it's a thin line where it's not a Vivid Bharati station ki 102.8 पे एकदम उसको set करके छोड़ दिया. What happens is that perfectionism can go to a part which interferes with the completion of the task itself sometimes. And there is an excessive devotion to work and productivity, not due to financial necessity. I think that is very important, because agar financial necessity hai, you better be working. But there is an excessive devotion to work and productivity, resulting in the neglect of leisure activities and friends. Now that might start to ring a bell here. That might start to ring a bell here with many people. And then there is excessive conscientiousness, fastidiousness, and inflexibility regarding ethical and moral issues and values. Unwillingness to throw out worn out or worthless objects, that is hoarding, even those with no sentimental value. Reluctance to delegate or work with other people because they won't be able to do it as well. Like my residents will be smiling now. Okay, oh right, that's why, right? A miserly approach to spending for themselves also, and others, because they see money as something to be saved for future disasters. So I say that people who are in the disorder, see, we will have some of these traits. See, here what will happen is that if you have some of these traits, but not enough, if you don't have 4 or 5 of this, you don't have the disorder. If you have 4 or 5 of this, my number is in the end, so please call me. If you have 3 or 4 of these, a lot of us will have 2 or 3 of these, then you are said to have those traits, but not the disorder. You're supposed to have those traits. So, so for those people, I say, those people who have the disorder, I say that they are not saving for a rainy day. They are saving for the monsoon in Cherrapunji. So they are can be extremely frugal. And then there is rigidity and stubbornness. Now, if you look at these two components, the definition of what is compulsion and what is OCPD, and then you search within yourselves, it is likely that you will find a few of these traits and some definition of the compulsion you'll find in all of us. Right. Can we have the next one now? Now, just to show that we all have these things. So this is not about religion. I'm not making a commentary on religion at all. This is to show the rituals which we all have. We all have. So Freud, very always controversial. He said many things which are very, very thought-provoking and deeply insightful, and a lot of things which were very incorrect and misleading. Now, where this falls, it's an individual decision. So he said that religion is a universal obsessional neurosis, and obsessions are an individual religion. The importance why I'm bringing this in is because a lot of us are religious and we follow those religious rituals. Now, if you think about some of these rituals, so for example, I will go back to my hostel days. It was so relieving. तो मार पिटाई तो हो रही थी, लेकिन इतना ज्यादा अफेक्शन और लव मिल रहा था और ये दो अलग अलग लोगों से मिल रहा था. जो लोग अफेक्शन दे रहे थे वो मार नहीं रहे थे, और जो मार रहे थे वो अफेक्शन नहीं दे रहे थे. इट वाज क्लियर कि कौन क्या कर रहा है. तो एग्जाम पहला वो एनाटॉमी फिजियोलॉजी बायोकेम वाला एग्जाम था. टेंशन के मारे जान जा रही थी. सुबह सुबह अच्छा पहले ही इंस्ट्रक्शन दे दिया गया था, सब लोग नाश्ता करके जाएंगे, कोई भूखे पेट नहीं जाएगा. अच्छा, डर भी इतना लगता था कि भैया सब पहुंच गए ड्यूटीफुली. तब ज्यादा लोग भी नहीं थे हमारे बैच में हॉस्टल में. 8-10 लोग भी नहीं थे शायद. तो सब पहुंच गए सोनी जी के यहाँ फॉर ब्रेकफास्ट. तो वहां पे हमारे सीनियर्स, सेम 85 बैच, वो थाली था, सबको टीका लगा, सबको मीठा खाने को मिला, सबको ब्लेसिंग मिली कि जाके एग्जाम अच्छे से करना. इतना राहत मिली उससे. It was so relieving. And that is what rituals do. They are so relieving. Now, it can be argued that this has nothing to do with your exam. भाई आपने जितना पढ़ा है उतने नंबर मिलेंगे. आपको टीका लगाया गया नहीं, जिसको टीका लगा उसको ज्यादा नंबर मिलेंगे, ऐसा तो है नहीं. Yes, it can be argued in that way. But I think that the importance of the ritual is their ability to decrease the anxiety, to decrease the distress. And we all have rituals. We all have rituals. And sometimes the rituals are actions which we are performing which may not be connected real in a realistic way. Remember, that is what the compulsion said, that these are actions or motor or mental acts which either are not connected in a realistic way to the event, the dreaded event that they are designed to prevent. तो अगर मैं अपने हाथ फोल्ड कर रहा हूं, या मैं 3 बार एंटी क्लॉकवाइज रोटेट कर रहा हूं, या मैं जाके कुंभ में डुबकी लगा रहा हूं, logically and reasonably you will feel that this action is not going to help me get the job interview or ace the interview, because it is not realistically connected to the dreaded event कि मुझे मैं फेल हो जाऊंगा एग्जाम में, मुझे जॉब नहीं मिलेगा. So you see, all rituals, whether religious or not, we all have our rituals. They carry the same characteristics as obsessions, and not obsessions, as compulsions. So in all of our lives, we have these rituals. And some of these rituals, because they are reassuring and comforting, we want to follow them. But there is some degree of rigidity attached to it. कि आपको कभी लगेगा कि यार अगर छींक दिया हमने तो हम सबको लगेगा कि यार 2 मिनट रुक जाओ, फिर जाओ पानी वानी पी लो, छींकने के बाद मत निकलो, है ना. बहुत सारे लोगों के बहुत सारी चीजें हो सकते हैं। हमारे पास वो लकी पेन होता है, वो लकी पेन हम लेके चलेंगे। मेरे पास वो बैग एक है जो मैं हमेशा अपने ट्रेवल्स में लेके चलता हूँ। वो मतलब अब उसकी धज्जियां उड़ रही हैं, लेकिन वो बैग लेके चल रहे हैं कि भाई अब वो लकी बन गया है बैग। वो पर्टिकुलर हैंडकरचीफ, वो शर्ट, है ना। वी ऑल हैव दोज रिचुअल्स एंड दे आर मेंट टू डिक्रीज एंजाइटी एंड दे आर रीअश्योरिंग एंड कंफर्टिंग, व्हिच इज व्हाई वी डू देम। बट दे ऑल्सो ब्रिंग ए लिटिल बिट ऑफ रिजिडिटी इन टू आवर लाइफ, कि अगर वो नहीं किया तो हमको घबराहट हो गई, यार मेरा पेन नहीं मिल रहा है यार। तो कोई बोलेगा चल यार छोड़, अभी एग्जाम का टाइम हो रहा है, तो अब वो पेन ढूंढ रहा है, ये ले ले, ये पेन ले ले। बोला, अरे इस पेन से तो फेल हो जाऊंगा यार, मैं मेरी पेन का है वो ढूंढ रहा हूँ। सो वी, इट कैन, द ग्रेटर द एंजाइटी, द ग्रेटर इज द रिजिडिटी। तो जितना एंजाइटी ज्यादा रहेगी उतनी ज्यादा हमें वो रिजिडिटी आ जाएगी, और कभी कभी हम उतने ज्यादा रिचुअलिस्टिक भी हो जाएंगे। That people, if you ask them to do something which is not in their routine, it makes them disturbed. Some people a little bit, some people a lot. It is different. Madam, can we have the next one, please? Now, if you look at anxiety itself, we always tend to think that anxiety is bad, anxiety is not good, or if I didn't have any anxiety, it would be so great. But that's not true. Anxiety, any emotion which is there, it has a meaning, it has a reason for being there. And the most important thing for anxiety is it is a signal of danger. Now, it was meant initially for external dangers. If a saber-toothed tiger is attacking you, or you should fight or you should flee the scene. That anxiety is for preservation of life. It's important to have that anxiety. It's like having pain. We don't like pain, but pain is essential, because people who have anesthesia cannot feel pain. For example, in leprosy, they damage their digits to such an extent that they may lose their digits because the protective pain is not there. So anxiety is essential. Anxiety is life saving. So when you are almost stepping onto the road and you see a speeding car, you have that shock and you step back, that saves your life. But what has happened over a period of time as civilization has progressed, if we can call this progress, because we are hurtling towards extinction now. But as civilization grew, it slowly eliminated the physical and real dangers of life. Most of us are never going to be faced, I hope, have never faced and are never going to face a life-threatening situation. But we still feel anxious. In fact, some people say that we are more anxious now than we were in the past. And it's very interesting, because why are we more anxious? Because now our anxieties are internal. All our anxieties have now become artificial. I call them artificial. They are aspirational. कि मुझे एमबीबीएस में हो जाए यार, मुझे एमडी मिल जाए यार, मुझे अच्छी से प्रैक्टिस चल जाए मेरी, मैं अच्छे पैसे कमा लूं, फिर मेरे बच्चों को एमबीबीएस मिल जाए यार, मेरे बच्चों को एमडी मिल जाए यार, उनकी प्रैक्टिस अच्छी चलने लगे यार। ये सब एस्पिरेशनल है. So now our anxieties are all about what we want and we are not getting, and sometimes that we don't want this and which will happen to us. We don't want this and it will happen to us. In fact, a lot of times when we look at things which are tragic happening around us, we feel we feel that empathy, that pain, and we are anxious. A lot of people are anxious about what is happening in the world. That is because we are identifying with that pain. It's beautifully said in that Hamari wo, um, that song which says कि कौन रोता है किसी और के खातिर है दोस्त, कौन रोता है किसी और के खातिर है दोस्त, हर किसी को अपनी ही किसी बात पे रोना है. हम हर सबको अपनी ही किसी बात पे रोना आया. सो इट इज अबाउट our identification with that crisis and saying that, what if that happens to me? We may not feel it consciously, but the anxiety is generated because of that. So all our anxieties are, if you look at it, is aspirational. Very little physical danger is there in our lives. And all of this is because of something which we want or something we don't want to happen. It's a aspirational anxiety nowadays. Now, where is the origin of anxiety? Anxiety is present from birth. In children, pediatricians will know that children have stranger anxiety. You know, as we are taught, stranger danger. Stranger danger. So that kind of anxiety comes from that. Sometimes it comes from loss of the familiar. The mother is not visible for 2 minutes in a crowded room, and the child starts crying. Yeah. So, SP, you have to mute yourself. Yeah. So all our anxieties have become. Uh, Anxiety begins in childhood. Now the important thing is there's a great deal of importance of genetic loading here. What are your genes loading you with? What is the temperament with which you have been born? And then comes the things which are modifiable. Those things are not modifiable. You can't modify your genes. I mean, the ones with the G. And you cannot, you might want to change your parents, but you can't. And you can't change the temperament with which you were born. You may not like it very much. Most of us like uh, the temperament we are born with. We like our intellect, we like our personalities, we like ourselves, most of us, in many ways. लगती है सबको भली अकल अपनी और बीवी और की. So we all like our own thinking, our own thoughts. But then there are modifiable agents. So all children are going to have anxiety. Now here it starts to get different. That how much of those anxieties are addressed by the parents. The more vigilant, the more involved, the more supportive, the more sympathetic atmosphere which exists, the more the anxieties are quelled. वो शांत हो जाती हैं वो घबराहटें. And sometimes knowingly, mostly unknowingly, वो anxieties को वैसे एड्रेस नहीं किया जाता है, वो डांट वाट पड़ जाती है कि क्या एग्जाम के पहले रोने लगते हो, पढ़ाई किया करो, पढ़ोगे तो रोगे नहीं, है ना. तो पहले पूरे साल भर खेल रहे हो, मस्ती कर रहे हो, अब कहाँ है वो तुम्हारे दोस्त, हैं, बुलाओ उनको. उसे अब हमारे दोस्त तो ऐसे बहुत भयंकर थे. वो संगीत चौधरी, संगीत तो मतलब बहुत ही बड़ी चीज है भाई वो. तो वो से और एंजाइटी होती थी. सो one of the things that is observable, and there are many studies on this, in adverse childhood events, the relationship of adverse childhood events and future psychopathology. पहले तो ये physical disorders के लिए था. Cardiovascular risk, obesity, diabetes, and many other immunological disorders में adverse childhood events का क्या role है? They have a role to play. But slowly people started to look at adverse childhood events and mental pathology, mental psychopathology also. And then there is a lot of data about adverse childhood events and the future psychopathology. So what happens is generally one of the things that, like a gist of that would be that those things which you are deprived of in childhood will assume a disproportionate importance in your life later on. Diwar. Amitabh Bachchan has seen his mother being humiliated, but Shashi Kapoor has not. He was too small. So Amitabh Bachchan remembers that. He remembers the poverty and the humiliation कि उस बिल्डिंग में जहां मेरी माँ एक मजदूर के जैसे काम करती थी, वो बिल्डिंग मैंने खरीदी. He gave importance to those things. कि मेरे पास गाड़ी है, बंगला है, बैंक बैलेंस है. He gave importance to those things. You look at Shakti. His father basically said, yeah, I will not release the criminal even if you kill my son. His life was dominated by his desire to get back to his father, which he did by becoming a criminal himself. He became a criminal himself. His entire life. So it's a movie, but there's a truth in those movies. There's some truth, a grain of truth in what is happening there. And we see this day in and day out in our lives. People, children who have seen a lot of poverty or have grown up under difficult circumstances, sometimes become preoccupied with becoming rich, with earning money. It drives them in their lives and they don't know it also. No? Madam, can we have the next one? So, what is happening is that we all find our ways of coping with our anxieties, which have started probably way back. And sometimes there are anxieties which are added along the way. Remember, there are no physical dangers, and there's almost no physical anxiety that we have to. Sometimes we do have to face physical anxiety also. Somebody may have an illness, may have a child with an illness, or may have those kind of dangers. But most of our anxieties are internal. They are aspirational. And that is why, because they're internal, I'm calling them artificial. Artificial doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. It means it exists within, not without. And then what we have learned is that over a period of time, we have learned various ways of coping with that anxiety. And then we start to use those ways which work for us. Remember, like the rituals decrease anxiety. And so what happens is that we start using those ways over and over again in our life in a repetitive fashion, which we don't understand. There's a compulsion to repeat in this. And we follow those things, and it changes who we are as people, and it makes us who we are. And when we were discussing this, I told Chai Madam that I will bring in some cases and some patients and I'll explore. I thought that, these are my people. I will bring my own case here. I'm the patient whom I'll give examples from my own life. And how it changes us and shapes us, and how we sometimes realize it too late. And sometimes we never realize this at all because we haven't introspected enough. So, one of the things which happened in my life as I was growing up is that very early on, I understood, because of various things which were happening, that basically I'm on my own. I do not have somebody to fall back on. I can't fall back on my parents for any of the support or things which I would have needed for various reasons. And so what happens is that I have become that kind of person. I have always been that kind of person, and I'm still, I guess, that kind of person, but I have become more aware of it now. That I know that the buck stops with me. And because the buck stops with me, it brings in anxieties which are unrealistic. And it makes us an overly cautious person. So that second point, which is written there, risk aversion and excessive amount of caution, is the story which is here. So I always say that uh, I made one mistake in my life, major mistake, small mistakes though, too numerous to count and enumerate. But a major life-changing mistake which I did, and my wife is not on the call, right? So a major life-changing mistake which I did was that I didn't go to the US in 1993. तो हमारे बैच में सोनू was there, whose parents were there, and he came back with tales of this magical, wonderful land, which हम लोग सिर्फ movies में ही देखा करते थे. And then he sold us the American dream, and a lot of us were, I think, inspired by that. And हमारे बैच में Sudhir, I don't know if Sudhir has joined or not. Sudhir Mungi was the first in our batch to go. He got through a telephonic interview, rare in those days, I think, but through a telephonic interview, and he went. And I didn't go. So Sonu tried his best and he told me that you should go, a guy like you'll enjoy this place, you should go there. And I said, no, 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 no. So for years, I told myself I didn't want to go because I wanted to do something for my country and stuff like that. This idealistic smoke screen which we pull in front of our eyes to tell us that what we are doing is for a higher cause and for a greater cause beyond ourselves, which is not true. Later on, I accepted that I didn't go because I was afraid. I was not afraid of going to America. I was afraid that there is no backup. I don't have the money. Who is going to back me up? Sonu actually offered me the money. He said, hey, listen, my parents will pay for this. They'll get you your visa. You go there for 6 months. You live with them in Pittsburgh and you study for your USMLE. They will pay your USMLE fees. It's not a big deal. When you become a doctor there, you pay them back. But actually, it's the fear which held me back. The fear which held me back. And I think that over the years, I'm not aware of any fear. See, at that time, I didn't feel that I was afraid. Because it's not conscious. All of this is beneath the surface, but it changes our behavior. And I think that all of these years, if you look at, I'm a pretty conservative fellow. I invest very conservatively. I don't do risky things. I take 50 minutes to drive to my office. Other people are doing it 30 in 35. Chandrika will do it in 20. Um, I drive very carefully. I am generally a very careful person in many aspects of my life. And I think that it is driven by fear. And I tell myself, I'm cautious, like the OCPDs, that, oh, I'm just cautious. But it's driven by fear. So you see, a lot of these things have become part of our lives. Now, all of these don't apply to all of us. One of the things which I thought I will bring is this slavery to routine. You remember one of the things was there that people are very, very driven to work, and it's not because of financial necessity. I think that a lot of us are actually still there. Not everybody, but there are people who are who have been driven to work. And there are people who say that, oh, I have enough money to retire. I made enough money to retire some time back. But we don't even know why are we working these crazy hours. There are people of our age who are in their hospital at 9 p.m. They are in their hospital at 9 a.m. and at 9 p.m. also. It's not a financial requirement. If it is a financial requirement, no problem. That's fine. There are so many things to which we are slaves. We have lost so many of our dreams, our talents, our aspirations, our desires over the years. समय की छलनी से छन छन के खोए सपने सारे. Many of us are not following what our passions were, what we would want to do, what we like to do. We still are driven beyond reasonable, and these are because of the anxieties which come mostly from the past, sometimes from the recent future, but mostly in recent past, but mostly from the far past. And we have developed a compulsive way, a compulsion, in response to an anxiety thought. We don't have obsessive thoughts, but we have anxieties in our lives. And we respond to those anxieties in that compulsive way. And slowly it becomes part of who we are. And then we have the traits of OCPD. So you see, though, how it begins. It begins with anxiety, which is universal. It depends on how much anxiety, in how many things anxiety, and the reassurances which we have received. Too much of this leftover anxiety leads to compulsive actions. And repetitive compulsive actions lead to a personality where we develop those OCPD traits. Of course, there is a genetic involvement there. We are genetically, some of us are genetically predisposed and others not. But if you look into your own lives, a lot of things which you think you are safeguarding against no longer need to be safeguarded. Long time back. Like I have heard people, fairly well to do people, that if their kid asks them that, I want to buy this toy, तो ये तो है ही पहले से ही तुम्हारे पास कितने खरीदोगे? It's harmless. It's a 1,000 rupee toy. You can afford it. But वो रिफ्लेक्स रहता है कि इसकी जरूरत है क्या? इसकी जरूरत है क्या? कि नहीं, वो मेरी गाड़ी बढ़िया है, वो क्या जरूरत है नई गाड़ी की? वो बड़ी गाड़ी क्यों खरीदना है? अरे वो तो शो ऑफ के लिए है। इसका मतलब ये नहीं है कि आपको बड़ी गाड़ी खरीदेंगे तो फिर दैट मीन्स दैट ओ यू हैव ओवरकम योर, इट्स नॉट दैट। इट्स what is holding you back, what is holding you as a slave to the routine, what is holding you to that compulsive behavior, is it rational? Can we have the next one, man? So any of these things, you know sometimes we shouldn't look on OCPD as somebody very caricatured rigidity. This is comfort in conformity, for example. There's a lot of comfort in conformity. It's anxiety provoking to go against it. We can be excessively moralistic. We can be self-righteous. We can be very pious and holier than thou. भाई मैं तो नहीं करता हूँ सब, मैं तो बड़ा ऑनेस्ट हूँ। मैं तो ब्राइब ब्राइब लेता नहीं हूँ, ब्राइब देता नहीं हूँ, अनलेस अब मेरी डॉटर के लिए वीजा स्लॉट नहीं मिल रहा है और F1 वीजा है और कोविड टाइम है, तो हम दे रहे हैं 5,000 50,000 उस वीजा स्लॉट के लिए, वहां पे नहीं है। लेकिन बाकी सब में वी आर वेरी, बस मैं अपना एग्जांपल दे रहा हूँ। एंड देन समटाइम्स लाइक वी आर वेरी अनकंफर्टेबल विद कॉन्फ्लिक्ट, की लड़ाई हुई तो भाई उसको ठीक कर लो, उसको ठीक कर लो, लेट्स मेक अप, लेट्स नॉट prolong the fight. A lot of us may feel that way. Then there are people who just don't want to explore new things, to go new places, do new things. Sometimes in ourselves and sometimes in our children. कि नहीं नहीं, इतना दूर कैसे भेज दें बच्चे को? Like when Aditi went to the US, one of my very senior psychiatrist, a person I respect a lot. So I called him to tell him कि sir, Aditi has gotten into Fashion Institute of Technology and she's going to New York. और वो कोविड का टाइम था, इट वाज वेरी एंजाइटी प्रोवोकिंग टाइम फॉर अस, एंड ही सेड कि डॉक्टर अनुराग, यू आर वेरी बोल्ड, वी आर नॉट गोइंग टू सेंड अवर ग्रैंड डॉटर, वी आर नॉट गोइंग टू सेंड हर अब्रॉड। सी, फॉर व्हाट रीजन? when we do something, if you do something, a lot of people may question you, अरे आप ये करने दे रहे हैं, आपने वो कर दिया, आपने वहां भेज दिया। अरे भाई, हैदराबाद से गोवा जा रहे हैं ना, काबुल से कंदाहार थोड़ी जा रहे हैं। बट दैट एंजाइटी which is not realistic, which is not even conscious, can dominate our lives. Madam, can we get the next one, please? So, what do we do? Remember, these behaviors or mental acts are not connected in a realistic way to what they are designed to neutralize or prevent, or are clearly excessive. So, first of all, we should think that, are my responses, the way I'm living my life, or certain things which I'm doing, is it driven by anxiety? Is it driven by an anxiety which belongs to the past, that is no longer operative now? Sometimes, we don't even think about those things and we just, वो चल रहा है तो चल रहा है. We never question that behavior. So first of all, I think that we should examine ourselves for this thing and ask ourselves, are we setting infinite goals? कि भाई मुझे सेव करना है पैसा, कितना सेव करना है वो तो पता नहीं. सेव करते ही जाना है, जितना सेव करेंगे उतना अच्छा है. But we might want to change these infinite goals to finite ones. I want X amount of money for my retirement. I want X amount of money for my children. I want X amount of money for my health. And once I reach that, I'm not going to keep on doing that. The second thing that we can think of is acceptance of things which we cannot change, which has happened. अब अभी तो अमेरिका जाऊंगा नहीं मैं, और अब मैं जाना भी नहीं चाहता हूँ शायद. I would want to travel, but I have to accept a mistake which has been made. Acceptance and radical acceptance are applied to things in the past, not about things in the future, because things in the future we can change. We can strive to change things in the future. But the things which have already happened, acceptance for that will decrease the anxiety. Then there's the constant battle between contentment and ambition. Are they compatible? It's difficult to say. Some people will say that if you are not ambitious, then you are going to stagnate and you are going to rot. You need to be constantly trying to do new things, learn new things, achieve new things, reach out to new things. With that, there is a doubt whether we can achieve contentment, which is basically happiness with what we have. One of the things definitely we should do, that we should remind ourselves of what we have. Be more accepting of some things which have gone wrong. We might have chosen the wrong job, the wrong partner, the wrong country. These are big, big things. And then there are smaller things which may not have worked. That we cannot change, that we should accept. All of those old worries and angers and hatreds, it's easier said than done, letting it go. I myself struggle with letting go of many of the hurts or the insults or the things which I have received, and it's a work in progress. Sometimes there's not much progress if it comes to me, not much progress also, but at least we should be aware of it. And above all, I advocate a gentler view of ourselves and probably of other people. Let's not be so demanding on ourselves. Let's not be perfectionist. Remember, I feel that a lot of perfectionism comes from anxiety. The anxiety that things will not be in my control, and we try to control all of those things by being perfect so that nothing can go wrong. Madam, last one. Thank you, everybody. Please, if
Sorry,
I
I think
can,
I went to the first slide by mistake, but I'll
no
bring up
problem.
the last
Yeah,
slide again.
the thank you slide didn't come. All
Sorry
right.
about that.
Back to you, madam. Thank you once again for this wonderful opportunity. All these wonderful people who have played such a nice role in my life
Thank you,
in various
Anurag.
ways.
Thank you, because like I said, a lot of these things we don't have a clear understanding. Of course, we didn't learn it in medical school. We didn't learn in our real life formally, but we are we are delighted that we have this chance to learn formally and also implement it in our life. Not too late, never too late.
Never to them.
Uh, Chai Madam, this is Archana here.
Hi, Archana.
Can you share the can you go from share mode to unshare mode? We can see everybody. Hi, Anurag.
I stopped it, yeah.
Hello,
And
hello.
I just have to tell you something. I'm going to make Anurag the host. There is a meeting for meditation that happens very soon after. So I'll just start that meeting and I'll come back here. Okay? So I'm making Anurag the host, but you all go ahead and ask him as many questions as you want.
So you'll see me as Anusha there. So that's my daughter's
Right.
laptop. So in case you are wondering.
Anurag, the last slide was hi, first of all. So good to see you.
Likewise.
Yeah, for others, Anurag and Archana. So we always, for 5 years, we were in the same group of rotations and whatnot. And I am, I was never surprised you became the psychiatrist. You were always the reflective one. The
So
last,
sweet, Archana. Thank you. So sweet.
it's the last slide that just is, it's like a hammer on the nail's head. Um, Letting go and being gentler on self. I think those are hard things to do. As you earlier said something, that some of the behaviors that you might even become aware of to change is anxiety provoking. So in the long run, you know that this is a wrong behavior that's perpetuating. But in the moment, it becomes anxiety provoking.
Yes, that is true. Very true.
So what are your thoughts on that? Thank you for a
So I
beautiful.
think,
But one more thing, Rupert was here. He had to go for a case. He wanted to say hello.
okay.
He didn't want to interrupt you. So yeah, sorry.
So I think that we all, these are common struggles. We all have those struggles. I think that the first step is to become aware of our anxieties, and the first impulse for us is to avoid anxiety. Let's do something which will avoid anxiety. Let's distract ourselves from that anxiety. So, for example, we may, we may, we may become workaholics for that. We may become addicted to certain things. We might watch movies. Some people would become spiritual. Some people will turn to meditation. There are various ways which we use to decrease the anxiety. So I think that the first thing we should do is we should become aware of it. The good news here is that if we become conscious of these things, and we instead of avoiding it, we face that anxiety, much like a bully. Anxiety is a bully. Much like the bullies in our real life, we will find that once you face them, it just disappears. But facing them is the problem, because the initial anxiety is something which we cannot tolerate. I think that we should look more and more at how realistic that anxiety is. A lot of our anxieties are because all I want is everything. All I want is everything. So I think that if we become more aware and more conscious of these things, then we are going to slowly over a period of time be able to decrease their anxieties. Like I said, you can have immediate measures. You can take a Xanax. You can meditate. You can watch a movie. You can dissolve yourself and devote yourself and lose yourself in work. And then you can zoom out a little bit, look at your anxiety, and you'll see that most of your anxieties are aspirational. And if you let go of that, then some things will happen, some things will not happen. A lot of anxieties may come down. I hope everybody can unmute themselves. I hope Cha Madam has given that option to everybody. Or do I have that option?
I think one can unmute. I was able to
Very
do
well.
it myself. Yeah, yeah.
All right. Okay. Very well.
So, unless somebody has another question, I have a little follow up to that. Is it
Okay. Go ahead. Yeah.
then? Is it then fair to rephrase it that those old behaviors that have sort of been wired into you by whatever reason, and you become aware of it, and you label that anxiety as an anxiety, not a reality,
Mm.
you may need some tool to sort of rewire you to a better behavior. Would that be fair? Because the common answer has been, okay, let's work more and earn more money, or let me do this to do that. Let me make a phone call right now to make sure why my parents are not answering the phone to my sister. Let me call my sister. My parents are okay. that we have some behaviors that feeds and answers the anxiety. So are you telling to frame it as anxiety and
Okay, so there will be realistic and neurotic anxiety. There will be some anxiety which is realistic. It's true. Realistic anxiety has to be met with action. So if I am anxious, say that I have to pay my daughter's fees, then I have to arrange for the money so that I can address that. It cannot be dealt with psychologically. But like I said, I think that most of us are in places now where we don't have much realistic anxieties left in our lives, and probably we never had. So the neurotic part of the anxiety, definitely, I'll take this example. I'm worried that my parents are in Indore. I'm in the US. I'm in Pennsylvania, and my parents are in Indore, and I'm worried about them. Right? Now, you think about it like this: that our parents are getting older. If our parents are still around, they've had a good life. They've had a good life. And here's the truth. Anurag Jansar told me this truth. Nobody gets out of here alive. So people are going to die. If somebody has lived to be 75, 80, most of our parents will be at least 75, 80 now. We are all 55. Our parents will be 75, 80. If they have lived to be 75, 80, we should rejoice in that life. Why is our anxiety there? We want them to live forever. Oh my God, has something happened to them?